In the silence of the night, the delivery map showed the distance shrinking, just 3 minutes before the knock would come. Inside the tidy little room, time seemed to slow, the cold air creeping through the curtains. The final seconds before the doorbell felt suspended, as if the city itself was holding its breath, and the once ordinary atmosphere suddenly grew heavy, as though something unseen waited beyond the threshold. Beneath the dim lights of the apartment corridor, the silence thickened as the food delivery figure stood at the door, face hidden behind a mask, a strand of hair falling to shadow her eyes. Her hand extended, offering a package that seemed ordinary but carried an unsettling aura. A faint scent, part food, part something darker, lingered in the air. That night, what should have been routine and friendly twisted into a chilling moment, as if something unseen accompanied her every move. That gaze pierced through the mask covering her face, so sharp and cold it seemed to freeze the air itself. In a fleeting moment that stretched endlessly, the world narrowed to that unblinking eye, etching tension into every heartbeat. The shadows around the doorway deepened, the wind ceased to stir, and an uncanny stillness gripped the apartment corridor. What had been an ordinary night now shifted into something menacing, as if the boundary between the seen and unseen had begun to blur. The savory aroma from the warm bowl seemed to erase the tension of the encounter moments ago, yet the strange shadow of that brief meeting lingered in his mind. As he savored each bite, the comfort slowly shifted into a subtle unease, especially when his fingers brushed against something that did not belong in the meal. His fingers trembled as he pulled out the thin, long strand that felt unnervingly cold, as if it didn't belong to any human. Disgust crawled up his spine, mixing with an unease he couldn't quite name. He stared at his phone, intending to file a complaint, but the memory of those piercing eyes behind the mask flashed back, watching him, perhaps even now. The silence in the room grew heavier, and even the ticking clock began to sound like a whisper, warning him to beware. When the review notification appeared, the delivery woman's face stared back at him, sweet and flawless, so unlike the piercing gaze that haunted his memory. That smile, too friendly and calm, sent a chill down his spine, as though something about it didn't fit. The next day, exhaustion and routine couldn't erase the quiet curiosity creeping into his thoughts. As the screen displayed meal options, he found himself hoping the same delivery girl would appear again, even though her haunting eyes from last night still lingered. When the notification confirmed she would be the one to deliver, a strange excitement mixed with unease welled up inside him, as if fate was setting the stage for a far darker turn. The familiar knock broke the silence again, but this time the air in the hallway felt colder and heavier. As the door swung open, the same figure stood there, holding a seemingly ordinary package, her eyes half hidden beneath the shadow of her hair and the damp mask. A faint, unnatural smile couldn't disguise the unease hanging in the air, and it was as if the very space around them held its breath, waiting for something unseen to unfold. Her gaze shifted, no longer flat and cold, but now carrying something more threatening, as if the space between them had vanished in an instant. The soft words she spoke felt wrong, like an echo from an empty place that wasn't truly hers. As she turned to leave, the hallway's air grew dense, and her departing steps sounded longer than they should have. The tempting aroma of the meal once again filled the room, but beneath the satisfaction it brought lingered a shadow of unease. Each bite felt like a pause before something unexpected. When his teeth struck something hard and foreign, a small cracking sound broke the silence, and a wave of disgust and dread washed over him. Whatever lurked within that food was clearly no coincidence, and the air around him seemed to grow heavier, as if the room itself was holding its breath. The cold strand and hard object were only the beginning. Inside the meal, pale scales glimmered under the light, as though they belonged to something that shouldn't exist. His hands trembled as he picked them out one by one, feeling their unnatural texture. With each new discovery, the air thickened and the walls seemed to close in around him. The following night came with the same stillness, and his hope of seeing her again filled his thoughts, masking the lingering unease. He imagined a brief conversation, maybe even exchanging contacts, as if it could be the start of something wonderful. But a sudden vibration from his phone shattered the daydream, and the unfamiliar name on the screen felt like an unexpected warning. The knock came again, sharper this time, slicing through the night's stillness. When the door opened, she stood there once more beneath the dim hallway light, a faint smile playing beneath her damp mask. But something was wrong. Someone else was supposed to deliver tonight. A chill crawled down his spine as their eyes met, and that smile stretched just a little too wide, as if concealing something dark and unspoken. The cheerful smile and casual greeting tried to mask the creeping tension, but something strange seemed to ripple through the air around them. His hand trembled slightly as it brushed the package, and his nervous laugh rang too loudly in the narrow hallway. The suggestion of exchanging contacts hung in the air, heavier than it should have been, as if each word carried the shadow of an unseen intent. The dinner box opened to reveal cuts of meat that seemed fresher and more abundant than usual, as if an unseen hand had prepared them intentionally. A small smile crossed his face, but beneath the fleeting joy was a quick flash of doubt, an indistinct but suspicious feeling. In the dim light, steam from the meal rose slowly, curling like a thin mist, carrying an aroma he couldn't quite place. Each piece lifted by his chopsticks felt like an invitation to something not entirely safe. The satisfaction of a delicious meal dulled his vigilance, and the delivery woman's profile glowing on his phone seemed strangely comforting. He stood in the middle of the room, imagining the next step, picturing a more intimate meeting. Yet his gaze lingered on the empty box on the table, and the silence that followed felt too deep, as though something unseen was watching his every move from the shadows. The following night, he waited, falsely reassured that things would return to normal. A different name appeared in the delivery notification, offering a fleeting sense of relief, as if last night's tension had been nothing but imagination. But the familiar knock echoed too soon, earlier than expected, causing the room's air to tighten. A flicker of doubt crossed his mind, the sense that whatever awaited beyond the door might not be what it seemed. Framed in the doorway's dim light, she appeared again, her damp hair draping over part of her face, her mask more crumpled than before. Her thin hands extended the package with a stiff motion, and the silence between them felt unnatural, as if time itself had paused. Her half-hidden gaze cut through the hallway's darkness, carrying a quiet menace that chilled the air around them. Bathed in dim light, the moment felt fragile, two worlds seeming to meet in an uneasy silence. Her trembling hands offered the package as the space between them shrank, holding its breath as if even nature was watching. His nervous smile met eyes that glimmered with something colder, something that didn't match the tender words just spoken. In the dim hallway light, something shifted in the silence. The figure before him bowed her head, shoulders trembling faintly, cold sweat dripping down her face. The air grew heavier, as if the walls themselves were closing in, shrinking the space around them. The broken words that escaped her lips no longer sounded fully human, each syllable carrying the weight of a warning from deeper darkness. In the suffocating darkness, that strange scraping sound echoed, soft yet piercing, like fingernails dragging across soaked fabric. She stood rigid, hands trembling near her face, her tangled hair veiling most of her expression. But behind the curtain of hair, her eyes widened with an inhuman fear or hunger. The repeated shriek shattered the silence, tightening the atmosphere until even the night seemed to hold its breath. Their eyes met, and time seemed to freeze. Trembling hands lifted, parting the damp strands of hair to reveal skin that shouldn't have been there, peeling, scarred, and marked with shifting black shadows that seemed alive. The shriek grew sharper, echoing in his ears like whispers from the abyss. His wide-eyed surprise twisted into pure terror as an unexplainable reality closed in. In that instant, an ordinary night became an inescapable nightmare. His breath quickened as he stood in the doorway, staring into the empty corridor that moments ago had been thick with dread. The figure was gone, leaving behind only silence and a lingering coldness in the air. He looked down at the package in his hands, ordinary at first glance, yet now heavy with dark significance. His trembling fingers peeled back the plastic, catching a glimpse of something that shouldn't have been inside. The package slipped from his hands, the food spilling onto the floor with a wet sound that shattered the silence. His heart pounded erratically, his eyes fixed on what remained before him. A cold dread crept through his body as thoughts he didn't want to believe began to take shape. Fragments of a horrifying truth. Cold sweat traced down his temples as he covered his mouth, trying to steady his breath. Grotesque fragments were now undeniable. Strands of hair, a cold scale, and blackened nails that couldn't belong to any ordinary meal. Horrific images flashed through his mind. The unnatural chunks of meat, the dark eye behind wet hair, and the faint scent of death now filling the room. In his fractured awareness, he began to understand that every overlooked detail had been a clue, each one leading him to a truth too terrible to speak aloud. A cold gaze pierced through the curtain of hair, unblinking, as if the night itself had become aware. Beneath that stare, the simple meal box became a harrowing message, a small note reading, "I'm always watching you." Silence seeped into every corner of the room, making each breath feel heavier. As the darkness swallowed the last traces of light, it was clear that whatever had begun was far from over.